And I got to tell you, I put a lot of information in the back about the Northside Achievement Zone. And how many of you have heard about that so far? Well, we have a Northside Achievement Zone parent here. So, Rosie, if you would please stand up and just wave your hand, Rosie. I know Rosie hates being called out, but Rosie, if you would stand up. And Rosie is incredible. We had a function at McKnight, and I asked Rosie to speak, to talk about what her vision was for a community as a mother with children in this community that she's been concerned about as she furthers her education as a single mom. And I don't know, Rosie was a little bit shy initially, said she'd do it, but I got to tell you, the people said, boy, Sondra, that was a great event. And you know, I spoke too. And they said, that mom you had was incredible. It wasn't Sondra, you were incredible. They got to hear from somebody who was really, really making a difference in this community. And what we're doing in the zone is no different than what we're doing on the north side, generally speaking. And the mission of the Northside Achievement Zone, which includes this neighborhood, we are in the zone right here, is to create a culture of achievement in a geographic zone of North Minneapolis where all children graduate from high school college ready. And I say education because what we know is that for the kids that you think have no chance, they would have a chance. It's for three things: family, community, and schools. Every time that's a three-legged stool upon which every child stands. And to the degree that they're healthy, all three of those legs are standing up straight and erect and strong. And when one of those legs falls down, the other two better kick in. Because if we decide not to, then we will continue down our present course and just simply build jails and dig graves. It's a very simple choice. We love, we care, we do what needs to be done, or we build more jails and we dig more graves. Because that's been our course so far. You've heard it said that prison projections are based on third grade reading scores. Well, guess where the third graders are failing most? Guess whose neighborhood it is? It's ours. Only 10% of African American children were proficient in reading. Everybody, 10%, 90 could not read at grade level. All right, 90%. And what that means, you know why that's so significant, by the way? And these are our children. When we disproportionately, it's going on around the country, yes, and it's going on around Minneapolis, yes, but disproportionately is happening here. And you know why that's such a big deal? And why we're making the connection between family, schools, and community? Because up until third grade, kids are learning to read. They're learning to read. And when I say up until third grade, I don't mean that they started in kindergarten. You heard that Minnesota has the second largest achievement gap in the country. The biggest part of that gap is right here. It didn't start in kindergarten. It started in the womb. How many of you knew that? The moms that are getting prenatal checks, that are not drugging, that are in a safe environment, and then when that baby is born, the number of books that are read, the number of times they've been affirmed as opposed to being talked down to, the amount of time they spend with both parents and or similar parents, that all makes a difference in the brain architecture of a child. So by third grade, if they have not learned to read, and again, it starts way back. So that's where we're not playing with families. We know families are a major part of this. They're the first teachers. But if it hasn't happened by then, by third and fourth grade, at that point, kids learn by reading. They learn by reading. So if you haven't, just follow the trajectory. If you haven't learned to read, and then at that point, you have to learn by reading, what chance do you have? And that's why we have, and by the way, I'm not calling it a dropout rate anymore. I'm not calling it kids who drop out. I'm saying adults who fail. Both families, both schools, and communities. I'm part of an organization that gets significant dollars to be part of change. There are churches that get significant dollars of membership time and money to be part of change. and spirituality. There are schools that give billions of dollars to educate our kids. When our kids don't make it, it's not their fault. An adult somewhere failed them. And so what we're saying is that as a community, we're going to buck up and say no excuses. That we're working with the schools, we're working with families, we're working with organizations like mine, and I want to ask you right now, if in the next couple of years you don't start to see change, and it's not just the Peace Foundation, I want to stress that. We have 60 some odd organizations over north. I mean, if I started naming them, and we're standing in one, the Parks is a key player. If I started naming all the organizations, I would mess up because there's too many that have committed to that same mission. But I got to tell you, the buck does stop with me and the Peace Foundation. And if it's not happening, if you don't see outcomes starting to change for our kids from early on, moving through, then make sure I don't have a job in a couple of years. Because I don't want to keep doing this and our kids continue to fail. Because there are models around this country where they don't. There are communities that have come together and fought so that their kids don't. And guess what? They're often very mixed communities. Because again, this is not a black problem. It is not a poor problem. It is not a straight problem, a Christian problem. It is a human dilemma. And we have been handed America's bag of goodies. And this is our generation's work. Those of you who've heard me speak, you know I know you've heard me say this like too many times, right? But and I'm going to sit down after this. An African philosopher that I love, Frantz Fanon, he said that every generation, out of relative obscurity, must discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. Must discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. There's no greater mission than our children. Right now, here today, on our watch, what will history say about us? And I got to tell you, I'm so proud to be in this with you as we do this work together. Because you know what? Every once in a while, I do say, Don, you know what? I'm ready to move. When I do one more vigil, when I see one more body on the road, when I hear one more gunshot, it's true. While we have wonderful things that happen, you know we got some serious challenges. And every once in a while, I hear myself say that. And I say it to my husband. And I fear for my 3 daughters. But then another voice comes in and says, but dang, aren't you alive living here? Don't you have a reason every day to get up? And at the end of the day, can't you say that your life made a difference? And that's true. And that's what keeps me here with the neighbors that I love. And you are those people. And I know you feel the same aliveness that I feel. Even though sometimes I know you probably are like, all right, this is crazy. But I know you feel the way I feel, and we are alive. And anyway, I want to thank you and keep up the good work.